Buschwhackers, full-time NASCAR Cup Series drivers racing in the Xfinity and Truck Series. Few aspects of NASCAR get such a visceral reaction from me. I've ranted about it countless times, even as NASCAR has taken steps to at least restrict the practice. I will admit that thanks to these measures, we are farther than we have ever been from the days of Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, or Carl Edwards taking wins and championships in the Xfinity Series in particular. But I also feel that with these restrictions, it should be easier for us to now ask, why is the practice allowed at all? Why not stamp out the last few embers of a once roaring fire? I've done my best to look inward and to consider the fact that this may be a me problem. To that end, I've narrowed my frustration down to one single aspect I despise the most. The fact that when a Cup driver wins, it's still feted as some kind of impressive accomplishment. Like, no way, he actually pulled it off, when we all know there are undeniable advantages at play. It's so insincere, like we're playing pretend. Only it has an air of perversity to it too, because we can all plainly see what's happening. True, it's not nearly as bad as when Cup invaders could still earn points and claim championships. Perverse isn't even a strong enough word for that. But still, it's a practice entirely antithetical to the spirit of stock car racing, and feels more like Formula One. Yet even if a Cup driver does this once all year, the play-by-play still shouts, "Can you believe he did it again?" Yes, I can. It honestly insults one's intelligence, like we're denying that predictable actions lead to predictable outcomes. I'd rather, when a big Cup team comes up with one of these deals, they just be honest with us and say, yeah, we're entering a two-time Cup Series champion in an immaculately prepared car because we think so little of everyone else in the field that none of them deserve the trophy. It's ours, and if you keep us from it, we'll complain about it endlessly. I would rather NASCAR just take a page from Sears Point in 1991 or Montreal in 2007 and pretend the driver in first didn't take the checkered flag and give it to the top-running series regular instead. This may sound stupid, but so is bushwhacking. And no, I didn't like it when I was a kid either. I could go on and on about this. I basically deleted 9 paragraphs from this script, then wrote the opposite for the April Fool's video yesterday. But rather than make you listen to all that again, I'd rather get into proposing a solution. The best I've come up so far is by using 2 of NASCAR's most controversial systems, the playoffs and the charter system, and tricking them into doing some good for once. Now let's be real, we still do need some kind of restriction in place. All the most popular excuses for bushwhackers make sense unless you actually think about them. We can't trust the teams, the drivers, or the sponsors to do this on their own. If given the opportunity, they will do it every time. So the sanctioning body needs to step in. What we first need is a clear performance-based reason to exclude certain Cup Series drivers from competing in Xfinity and trucks. This, I feel, is where the sport went wrong with their current protocols, and why Kyle Busch still feels like it's all about him. Keep the rule where drivers must declare points for just one of the top 3 series, so they can only win 1 championship per year. But beyond that, use a driver's playoff status as a means of exclusion. Make it a rule that if you win a Cup Series race, or make the playoffs without winning a race, you're completely ineligible to compete in the Xfinity or Truck Series the following year. If you win a Cup Series championship, you're ineligible for 2 years. But if you don't win the title, don't make the playoffs, and you go winless, you can run up to either 5 Xfinity or Truck Series races the following year. Let's stop short of as many races as you want, because again, we really don't need full-time Cup drivers running full-time in those series. This is why NASCAR should keep the rule where you declare for only 1 championship. And really, how many starts in those series do these drivers need when they have a full-time Cup ride? The biggest improvement here is it would exclude the most blatant offenders of both past and present. Kyle Busch is a perennial playoff contender and one of the greatest talents in the sport. He has no business lapping the field in Xfinity or trucks. But Kyle Larson shouldn't either, nor should William Byron, Joey Logano. The list goes on. This is as clear as one could possibly be without targeting any one driver in the field. But to be successful, this status must be non-transferable. It doesn't need to stay with the team, but it must always stay with the driver, just like their championship point status. As a bonus, this system is more flexible than the current system. It can become a storyline in its own right from one year to the next. I'm also making some concessions here. If this rule were already in place, Hendrick's Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman would be allowed to run a few Xfinity or Truck Series races. Neither won in 2023, nor did they make the playoffs. Why is this so much better than the system already in place? Because a winless driver is a struggling driver. It's not obvious that they'll win an Xfinity or Truck Series race either. And if they do, it can rejuvenate the driver's career. Just like for the Cup veterans who became series regulars, like A.J. Allmendinger and Justin Allgaier. There's no need to pretend the result was ever in doubt, like it would be with a Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin. It's also practical to enforce within the sport's existing schedule. If a Cup driver wins during the season where they can still run Xfinity or trucks, they can still compete in those scheduled races. As to the next season, there are absolute deadlines as to which point Xfinity and Truck Series teams will know which Cup drivers are and are not on the market. In September, when the playoffs begin, 16 are eliminated. By season's end, the occasional non-playoff driver who wins a race is also excluded, and the champion gets their second-year exclusion. This leaves anywhere from 3 to 5 months for teams and sponsors to make their plans for the following year. I also believe this shouldn't be a big change for the rest of the full-time Cup drivers. Many of them already don't run more than the occasional Xfinity or Truck Series race, so a 5-race cap shouldn't be too extreme. And even that rule won't apply at all to part-timers in Cup, meaning they can run as many Xfinity and Truck Series races as they like. For example, this rule is not intended to keep BJ McLeod from operating an Xfinity Series team, nor to keep Anthony Alfredo from competing in 2 series. Those are very different circumstances. Now, this doesn't fix the entire problem. I don't want to ignore the fact that many Xfinity and Truck Series drivers like competing against top-flight Cup drivers. That desire shouldn't be ignored. After all, their goal is to one day compete in the Cup Series. Cup drivers also have been vocal about the lack of respect shown by drivers in Xfinity and trucks, particularly after last year's Truck Series championship race. While I think that's a bit of an overreaction, it doesn't necessarily need to be dismissed either. Perhaps if both sides could find a middle ground. The answer, it turns out, has been there all along. Now it's the charter system's time to do some good. When the charters were introduced, the field was reduced to 36 chartered entries and 4 open entries, 40 spots in total. Over time, we've seen fewer and fewer of these open cars fill the fields. In 2023, 23 of 36 points races saw only the 36 chartered teams in the garage. 4 open spots in 23 races means 92 available starting spots were left completely unused. In reality, there were even more. Only the Daytona 500 saw 40 cars on the grid. Add them all up, and that's 120 unused starting spots over 36 races. Spots where if a team simply showed up and passed inspection, they'd be allowed to start. Instead, the pit stalls remained empty, and up to 4 more opportunities in each race were completely wasted. The few teams still trying to field open cars say it's too unprofitable to enter them. The cars are too expensive to build, to repair, or replace, and the chartered teams gobble up the majority of the purse money, per their agreement. Yet today there are a growing number of new and exciting talents in the Xfinity and Truck Series looking for their opportunity to run in Cup, and there's even more that are trying to get those opportunities. In the past, I'd advocated for underdogs to simply get chances in top equipment, and we have seen that, whether it's been Raja Carruth with Hendrick, or Josh Berry with JR Motorsports, and now Stewart Haas. But that's not enough, and frankly, I don't want that to become a rule either. Doing that would deny younger drivers the satisfaction of earning their rides, as both Carruth and Berry did. So the solution is this: have NASCAR subsidize open teams that are exclusively for up-and-coming drivers to try their hand at Cup. Not a full season for any one driver, but maybe a race or two. With NASCAR subsidizing the rides, these drivers can also offer better deals for their sponsors to gain exposure. The Cup Series schedule is more diverse than it's ever been, so we can bring in drivers who prefer short tracks, super speedways, road courses, or anything in between. The final 4 spots can vary dramatically from one week to the next, not unlike in the sport's past. History, once again, is our best guide here. During his life, Junie Donlavey gave young drivers opportunities to run in the Cup Series. He springboarded the careers of drivers like Ken Schrader and Ernie Irvan. We still see some examples of this in Xfinity, like Team owners Carl Long and Mike Harmon, and others in the Truck Series, like Room Brothers Racing. But there's no longer a counterpart in the Cup Series, at least not yet. Perhaps after NASCAR gets the ball rolling on these open teams, new investors will see their potential and take over operations. They just need a little push to get started. With this system in place, Xfinity and truck drivers won't have to settle for watching Kyle Busch or Joey Logano blow their doors off on Saturday. They can compete head-to-head with all the Cup drivers, earning what are currently near unattainable laps in the next-gen car. And for the Cup drivers who want to keep them in line, how best to do that than with every single one of them watching their every move? If the newbie screws up, the whole field will handle it. And combined with the first part of this rule, two of the biggest log jams in NASCAR's driver development cycle are cleared away. A Cup driver who struggles gets the opportunity to hone their skills in Xfinity and trucks, or to get their confidence back. Meanwhile, Xfinity or truck drivers trying to get into the Cup Series don't have to wait on the charter system's game of musical chairs to get their shot at racing at an elite level. In short, drivers who need help get the help they need when they need it, and those who don't need it don't get it. So what do you think? Do you like my solution, using both the playoffs and the charters to create a sustainable pipeline into the Cup Series? Or do you have an idea of your own? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.
In America, there exists a sport that is driven by the fans. They are why everyone works so hard, on the teams and at the tracks, in front of the grandstands and behind the scenes, to give the fans the greatest race possible. NASCAR fans deserve the best, starting from the high banks of Daytona, all the way to the shores of California, and at every race in between. NASCAR fans, you're the reason for our success. Thanks.